The product needs to be on time, in the right condition, right quantity, in the right place. Our customers usually need help to understand what is the right logistics solution for them.
Have you ever wondered how a warehouse is designed? What does WACO stand for?
WACO stands for Warehouse Consultants, and we are a group of specialized consultants who do exactly what it says. We design warehouses.
What services does your company provide?
We provide two main services. One is the design of warehouses or distribution centers, and the second part is the implementation of the design, so of the first part. Those are our main services. On top of that, we also offer the optimization of existing warehouses where an operation might be very inefficient or a warehouse management system isn't working at the best it could be. So we help with the optimization of those warehouses to increase efficiency and effectiveness.
Who is your typical customer?
Our typical customer is a company that has experienced a good amount of growth in the last few years, and subsequently their logistic capabilities have reached their maximum capabilities. And usually there's in the warehouse there's pallets standing in aisles because there's no more space to put them, and picking and packing is usually working in multiple shifts. There's more people to compensate for this lack of space. So our typical customer are those kind of companies that really need to move to the next level of their logistic capabilities to be able to fulfill service level agreements and as well as customer expectations.
What problem do you solve?
The problem our clients usually have is that their logistic capabilities have reached the limit, and it is starting to impact service level agreements and customer satisfaction. So most of the time being able to fulfill an order and deliver in a very short amount of time is incredibly valuable. Customers want things sooner rather than later, and this is true for B2B as well as B2C. So whether it is a commercial client or an end client, like a residential delivery somewhere, the fact is still the same, that the product needs to be on time, in the right condition, right quantity, in the right place. And to be able to fulfill that, our customers usually need help to understand what is the right logistics solution for them. Usually having reached the maximum what your facility can do doesn't give you much of an idea of what would be the next step. So how we help our clients is we look at their data, their operation, their business processes to be able to design a logistics solution that can handle all of their current and future requirements to be able to deliver to whatever the requirement may be. Some companies say maybe 2 days delivery time, some say next day delivery. And with all of that information in hand, we can design a facility that can actually deliver whatever it is the business needs to be able to deliver.
Philip, what are the design steps to a logistic solution?
The first part is we need to acquire a year's worth of data that is from the goods in, so reception, dispatch, inventory, returns data, to be able to build a full statistical model of what has happened within the last year, typically a little bit more than 1 year's data. This allows us to build that statistical model where we see where the peaks were, where the lows were, to be able to really understand from the numbers point of view how many pallets capacity we need per area. Can't mix, for example, frozen areas with dry areas, etc. Then also, what were the demand peaks? Are they in the mornings? Are they at a certain time on the year? This all depends on the industry, right? So some industries are bound by vacation times, maybe Christmas. Some are very heavy with the peak seasons like Black Fridays, etc. So we use the data. That is one big aspect. Another aspect is we then look at the clients, all of their business processes that happen within the distribution center, and we record all of the as-is processes to allow us to really understand how to design the logistics solution. So this means, for example, if you receive products for a pharmaceutical business and they come straight from the factory. Quite often they need to be in quarantine, so we need to have a quarantine area. Maybe there's physical quarantine, maybe it's logical. So all of these have a big impact of how to design things, and that we cannot see from the data. So we take the business processes and the data and we mix those two together to create a solution. Of course, we need other things, for example, growth projections. If your business has 10% growth in air-conditioned products or in pharmaceuticals, we know that. Maybe you have 3% growth in one product family, controlled products, etc. So we also need to know the business's strategy moving forward, if there's going to be any acquisitions, if there's going to be third parties also operating within the logistic facility, etc. So it's, in summary, it's really the data analysis, business processes, and then the company's direction, and we mix all of those together to be able to create a 3D model and the blueprints, etc., of the new distribution center.
Do you create only one solution for your clients?
Typically, we create 3 different logistic solutions, and this is because we try to give our clients a logistic roadmap for the next 15 years, so the medium term, so that the business understands where they are today, where they're going to be in the near future and the medium future. So the 3 different logistic concepts we create are for 5 years, then for 5 to 10 years, and for 10 to 15 years. So this allows the company to not invest all the money already into resources that are not going to be utilized, but once you reach that 5-year milestone, you will already know, okay, my next investment needs to be in potentially infrastructure or material handling equipment, racking, anything, but you already know how you're going to expand. You're going to be able to reutilize all the investments you've made, so you don't have to buy things but discard other things. Everything is reusable, and it allows a company to really understand what spending happens at which point in time. If you grow faster, then that's not a bad thing. It just means you need to expand earlier. If your business grows slower, it means you defer the investment into the expansion to a later point in time. But it saves you from having either to invest everything in the first place or to invest into the next 5 years. But after that, you don't know how to grow anymore. So we always create 3 different solutions that are building on top of each other for 5, 10, 15 years.
And are you limited to any technology?
As independent consultants, we are not working with any specific suppliers. We can work with any supplier from Europe, the Americas, Asia, anywhere in the world, which is one of the biggest benefits of working with us, as we do not insist on working with one or another supplier. We're not limited to any technologies. Every supplier has some really good products, and they also have some products that are not so competitive, either in operational efficiency or in pricing or whichever other way. So we are able to work with multiple suppliers to be able to pick and mix whichever is the most valuable solution to our client. And of course, this also helps us in terms of finding the best return on investment for our clients.
What differentiates you from your competitors?
One of our biggest differentiating point is that we are independent consultants. We do not push products from any supplier. We're not limited to a product catalog from any supplier. We're not limited geographically. We can work with suppliers out of China, Asia, Europe, Americas. We can work with anybody as long as it is a competitive solution. Sometimes a supplier out of Europe might be cheaper, but might offer less. Maybe a supplier from Asia has the same price, but has more in the product range. Sometimes also shipping costs make a very big difference to the distance of the product towards its destination. So we are able to work with any supplier and therefore find whatever is the best value solution for our clients, and therefore allowing them to get a return on investment as early as possible with the right solution for them.
And is automation a solution for everybody?
The use of automation is in some markets incredibly valuable, whereas in other markets it really doesn't add much value. So a lot of the time in the industry, in the logistic industry, there's trends. Now it is automation, maybe some artificial intelligence is also moving into that. I think the use of automation can be incredibly helpful for the right business that is also in the right location. So the cost of labor has a really big impact on that. So when using some automations, maybe you can have one person create or be as productive as 2 or up to 3 people in some scenarios. But if the labor cost is incredibly low in some Latin American countries, for example, then the cost of automation doesn't really justify the investment. There are, of course, exceptions, because once you move to a really large operation, automation also helps a lot in structuring the operation in itself. So it means every person only needs to work on one little thing, and this a large automated system takes care of coordinating everything. So for large companies, automation makes more sense. For smaller ones, it depends on the cost of labor.
How do you get a project started usually?
Usually we send them or share with them a questionnaire for us to really understand the scope of the project, the current facilities, the current material handling equipment, how many people work on site, what is the typical order format, so is it usually small orders with a large volume, or is it a large amount of orders with a small volume, as in like e-commerce usually has. And we also usually go on site to really understand where the pain points of the operation are and what the challenges are. And that usually allows us to create a proposal for our services that then gives the client the scope and the cost. And it is really important for us to have the previous knowledge to understand what that scope is, as our proposal is usually a closed proposal, which means that once we have established the costs, they don't change, even if the project might take a little bit longer or becomes a little bit more complicated. So for that reason, it's really important for us to understand the full scope as best as possible to start with. So once we share the proposal with the client, if they're happy with the proposal, that's the point where we can then literally, within a week or 2, go on site and get everything started with an on-site visit, looking at the business processes and explaining in detail what the information and data is that we need. And then from there onwards, it's usually 3 to 5 months to complete the design phase of the project.
What are the typical project milestones?
So our projects are typically split into the design phase and the implementation phase. The design phase usually takes between 3 and 5 months. The duration of the implementation phase depends on whether it is an existing infrastructure we are putting a solution into, or if it is a greenfield. If it is an existing building, the implementation phase usually takes between 6 and 12 months. If it is a greenfield where we are also constructing the warehouse, it usually takes somewhere between 18 and 24 months. But this also depends a little bit of availabilities of the suppliers and lead times.
So it does make a big difference to do a project on an existing site or on a greenfield.
Yes, so if it is an existing site, the time frames are less, because of course we do not need to construct a big building, and that usually is completed within 12 months depending on supplier lead times. When it comes to a new building, there are many benefits, because when we are working with an existing building, we have a lot of infrastructure limitations. The floor, whatever weight it was laid out to be, we've got building columns, fire protection equipment, stairs, and other things. So we need to work around them, which means sometimes we are not able to be as space efficient as possible. When it comes to a greenfield site, we usually design the logistics solution to be as compact as possible. Depending on how high we go with the racking systems or automation, aisles usually need to be a little bit wider. So we can work out from that. So first design the solution, and then afterwards we work with the architects and structural engineers to wrap the building around the logistics solution. Typically that's about 20 to 25% more space efficient than working with an existing building, unless we're very lucky and everything happens to be in exactly the right place, which is unusual because usually warehouses are designed to be fairly modular. So you get a modular design and then work around it on the inside.
As a designing company, does your involvement in a project end after the first milestone?
Our scope starts at the very beginning, first with the design, but then if we are contracted for the implementation, we start working with the clients directly, with the different departments to work out. One of the major aspects is the warehouse management system usually, because that is very complex. And the configuration of the warehouse management system depends on the business's processes. And every business has different processes. So there's a lot of customization. So we work together with the clients and with the different suppliers. And our involvement finishes typically after go live. So there will be a go live when everything starts working in the distribution center. And we're usually there for another week to understand if there is issues, to communicate with the different suppliers what the issues are. Those are usually also fixed within that week, so that when we leave, the operation is running smoothly and everything should work.
After the implementation phase, do you as well offer maintenance services of whatever you have implemented?
So typically after the implementation phase is completed, if it is completed successfully, there is very little to minor issues. And what we can do is after 3 to 6 months, we can come back onto the client side if there are issues, even if they are not, to just look around to see if everything is still working the way it should. One of the reasons for this is that quite often operators in the warehouse, when they find an easier way to operate in their area, sometimes they do this and bypass system rules because it makes their life a little easier. What they don't usually see is that that might have a negative impact on the supply chain somewhere. So maybe it bypasses some steps that are there for product quality reasons or fulfillment time quality. So maybe it delays things but makes it easier. So that is one of the things that we can do, coming back to a project that has gone live within 6 to 12 months to see if it has been accepted the way it was meant to be operated and if it is actually operated the way it should be.
Philip, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, Daniel, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.